Elon Musk. You know the name. He's the guy who wants to save humanity by getting us to Mars, but at the same time, he seems to have a real hard time dealing with the humans right here on Earth. He's got to be one of the most visionary, influential, and, let's be honest, deeply polarizing figures of our time. So, how do we even begin to make sense of him? Well, today we're going to dive into Walter Isaacson's massive biography and also look at some of the sharpest critiques of it to try and unpack the man behind all those headlines. And it all kind of starts with a quote like this. You see, during a debate with Google's Larry Page about the future of AI, Musk just blurts this out to defend our species. It's blunt, it's kind of jarring, and it perfectly captures the contradiction we're talking about today. A man with this fierce, almost abstract love for humanity that he often expresses in some, well, deeply flawed and very, very human ways.
To really get Musk, you have to start with his core identity. He is, first and foremost, an engineer. And not just any engineer. The guy operates on this specific, repeatable problem-solving method that he applies to everything. We're talking rockets, cars, even social media. He actually calls it the algorithm.
Now, the most telling part of this whole algorithm? It's step 2, delete. Musk's philosophy here is just relentlessly aggressive. He actually told his team at the Gigafactory that if you're not adding a part back in at least 10% of the time, you just aren't deleting enough. Like, for example, the factory was putting these little plastic caps on battery packs for shipping. They kept running out, and it was holding up the entire line. So Musk asks, who specified that requirement? Nobody knew. His response? So delete them. And they did. Turns out they never had a problem with bent pins. It's always delete, simplify, accelerate. That's the operating system. Okay, but that machine-like logic, it runs headfirst into a much, much more chaotic reality. His own humanity. And this is where the story gets really complicated, because his world-changing ambition often clashes, and I mean violently, with his personal interactions. And this contrast just lays it all out there perfectly. On one side, you've got this incredibly inspiring vision from Tesla's master plan, a future powered by solar. This is the kind of mission that pulls in the world's best talent. But on the other side, you get his brutal feedback to his own cousin, Peter Rive, after seeing an early Solar City prototype, the very company that was supposed to make that solar vision happen. It's this demeaning, crushing assessment that, yeah, it gets results, but it leaves a trail of human wreckage behind.
So, you might be asking, how can one person contain both of these extremes? Well, his first wife, Justine Musk, offered a really key insight. She described him as having an emotional shut-off valve. It's this psychological mechanism he apparently developed during a pretty traumatic childhood in South Africa. It lets him turn off fear, which, you have to admit, is essential for taking the kind of massive risks he does. But the valve isn't exactly precise.
As Justine puts it, when you turn off fear, you might just be turning off other things too, like joy or even empathy. This trait is both his superpower and his tragic flaw. It's what enables world-changing innovation, but it's also what makes him seem so callous and emotionally tone-deaf to the people right in front of him. And this internal wiring, it leads to another major contradiction: his relationship with risk and drama. On the one hand, he's an absolute master of calculated, high-stakes business moves. But on the other, he's an impulsive magnet for self-destructive personal chaos.
Right, so his PayPal partners saw early on that he didn't just tolerate risk, he wanted it. He literally craves the high-stakes situation. But his ex-partner, the musician Grimes, she sees a much darker side to this impulse. She calls him a drama addict and suggests he's drawn to chaos not just in business, but in his personal life too. She even associates his impulse with, and this is a heavy term, chaotic evil.
And honestly, the public record shows a pretty clear pattern. 2018 was just a whirlwind of chaos. He had the infamous funding-secured tweet that brought the SEC down on him. Then he smoked weed on Joe Rogan's podcast, which sent executives and investors into a total panic. And more recently, we've seen a public feud with Bill Gates and him spreading a baseless conspiracy theory about the attack on Paul Pelosi. It's this pattern of impulsive behavior that constantly creates new fires for his teams to put out. This quote about Bill Gates shorting Tesla stock, it is so revealing. Look, for someone like Gates, shorting a stock is just a financial calculation. But for Musk, it was a deep, personal betrayal, an act of pure hypocrisy. He doesn't see Tesla as just a company, he sees it as a moral mission. So an attack on its stock is an attack on the mission itself, and by extension, it's an attack on him. This is not business as usual. For him, it's a crusade. So this missionary zeal, it brings us to the way his story is even told in the first place. Walter Isaacson, he's known for these great man biographies, and he presents a really compelling narrative. But
Critics argue that it sometimes misses crucial context, and that creates a myth that's just as complex as the man himself. Let's look at a prime example of this. Back in 2020, Musk tweeted a simple, three-word phrase, "Take the red pill." Okay, on the surface, it's a movie reference, but underneath that surface lies a whole universe of contested meaning.
So Isaacson's biography explains the surface-level meaning. It correctly notes it's a direct reference to The Matrix, the choice between a comfortable illusion and the harsh reality. And for the biography, that's pretty much the end of the story. But for a lot of other people, that was just the beginning.
Yeah, critics of the book point out that this misses huge layers of context. First off, The Matrix was created by the Wachowski sisters, both of whom are trans, and many people view the film as a trans allegory. But at the same time, in the 2 decades since the movie came out, the term red pill has been completely co-opted by online anti-feminist and far-right groups. So for critics, Musk's tweet wasn't just a movie reference, it was seen as a signal to these political subcultures. And they argue that leaving all this context out kind of sanitizes what was a deeply controversial act.
So where does all this leave us? Well, with a legacy built entirely on contradiction. He's not a simple hero or a simple villain. He's more like an elemental force of nature, one whose impact is absolutely undeniable and whose character is deeply complex and, yeah, at times pretty troubling.
On one side, you have the visionary, the man who genuinely believes human consciousness is a precious light in the universe. And on the other, the tyrant, who, according to his own children, inflicted mental torture and actually told his new bride, "I am the alpha," during their first dance. The really critical thing to get here is that these aren't two different people. They are one and the same.
So what's the root of this? What's the source code for all this contradiction? Well, maybe the most insightful and honestly heartbreaking explanation comes from Grimes. She connects his attraction to chaos directly back to his abusive father, Errol, suggesting that he learned to associate love with being treated badly. It's a pattern that was burned into him in childhood that just seems to repeat over and over again. And this is why his story matters so much to all of us. Elon Musk's personal chaos isn't just personal anymore. It's fueling the engines that are literally reshaping our world and our future. And that leaves us with one last vital question. When a single person wields that much power, what does it mean for the rest of us when their fundamental operating system is chaos?